Creating a servlet. In this lesson we will discuss about how to create a servlet and the possible ways to create a servlet. The servlet can be created in any one of these ways, i.e. by implementing the servlet interface, by extending generic servlet class, and by extending the HTTP servlet class for HTTP requests. Let us discuss one by one in detail. Let's start with creating the servlet, implementing the servlet interface. In this method, we have to implement the servlet interface on our class and then define the service method. Let us discuss an example code for better understanding. Here, the test servlet is the name of a class that implements servlet interface to become a servlet. We can define the service method by writing our codes inside the method. Remember that the codes written inside the service method is used to service the request. The service method has two parameters, i.e. request and response, objects of servlet request and servlet response interfaces. Next, by extending generic servlet class. Let's see how the servlet can be created using this method. Here, we have to extend the generic servlet class in our class and override the service method like this. Let us analyze the code snippet. Here, testServlet is the name of a class that extends generic servlet class to become a servlet. We override the service method by writing our codes inside the method. Here also, the service method has two parameters, i.e. request and response, objects of servlet request and servlet response interfaces. The two types that we had discussed are the ways to create a servlet. Next, we will create a special type of servlet that processes HTTP requests, i.e. HTTP servlet. By extending the HTTP servlet class, in this method, first we extend the HTTP servlet class on our class and then override any of the doXXX, doGet, doPost, doHead, etc. This method corresponds to our request. Note that the GET and POST are the commonly used HTTP requests. We should not override the service method in this class. We will discuss the reason later. Let us see and analyze the example. Here also, testServlet is the name of a class that extends HTTP servlet class to become a HTTP servlet. Then we override the doXXX method by writing our codes inside any of the doXXX method. doXXX method has two parameters, i.e. request and response, objects of HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response interfaces. Let's see the sample servlet using the third method to create a servlet that sends a few HTML tags and some text to the browser. First, the javax.servlet and javax.servlet.http packages are imported to write a servlet or HTTP servlet which contains all the classes and interfaces related to servlet. The java.io package is imported to access the input or output related classes and interfaces. Hello World is the name of the servlet which extends HTTP servlet. HTTP servlet extends the generic servlet, so we can also get the methods defined in the generic servlet class. Here we use getRequest, so we override the doGet method, which will throw servlet exception and IO exception. The doGet method has two parameters, i.e. the objects of HTTP servlet request and HTTP servlet response to handle the request and response. setContentType method is used to set the content type, i.e. in which style we want to display the response. Here we display our response in HTML format. Later we will discuss about the possible content types. In order to see the output in the browser, we have to send the HTML statements in the response object. getWriter method returns a printWriter object, which is used to send text to the client or browser. The rest of the statements using println method of printWriter class are used to write the contents on the response object, which is sent to the browser. Well, let's see how to deploy our servlet in the next lesson.